What's up with it, y'all? It's JD and I'm back with another quick video. In today's video, I want to chop it up about the differences between Rio de Janeiro and Salvador de Bahia. And these are two areas in Brazil. Rio obviously doesn't really need to be spoken about too much. I think everybody's heard of Rio, but Salvador is a spot that is north of Rio, in the northern area of Brazil, like northeast, and it's another beach destination. So I kind of want to compare and contrast both of these areas just because, from the outside looking in, you would think that Rio and Salvador would be extremely similar just on the strength that they both have beaches, they both have really good weather, you know what I mean? And a lot of the times when you're talking about beach cities, beach towns, there's a lot of similarities that comes along with that. But before we get into the video, if you guys are interested in fitness, health, travel, overall growth content, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you can get updated every time I drop new content. But let's get back into the video. So I want to kind of break this video down into different categories. So first and foremost, these are both beach towns. So let's talk about which area actually has better beaches and better nature. So right now I'm on a beach or kind of like a little cove area, really more so than anything, out here in Salvador. And I would say that Salvador has better beaches than Rio de Janeiro, and it's not even necessarily particularly close. If you go to areas, and I'm more so just speaking about the main areas you're gonna go if you're like a tourist or like a gringo, a foreigner that's coming in and spending time in Rio or in Salvador. So if you're going to Rio, more than likely, the beaches that you have to choose from is Copacabana, you have Ipanema, you have Barra da Tijuca, you got Botafogo, Flamenco. Like those are all the beaches that's right there in like the city area. Opposed to like out here, you have like Baja Beach. You have just beaches all along like the coastline over here in Salvador. And the beaches in Rio are just super dirty. Like it's almost to the point where you really just don't even really want to get into the water. And honestly, the only area that I actually would even get in the water in Rio is Barra da Tijuca. That's the only place where the water is even like remotely clean. Like let me try to show you guys here, but like the water here is like super clean. You see the bottom, you know what I mean? You can see the bottom, see yourself when you're in the water, whatever. Like Rio is just, you can't even see anything. It's just brown. And I was actually chopping it up with one of my subscribers, and he was telling me that Rio has like a terrible sewage system, and from what it sounded like, they just dump the sewage straight into the ocean. So it's like, when you think about it like that, like it makes me just not even want to get in the water in Rio in general. So as far as the beaches go, the beaches out here are beautiful. Water temperature is another thing actually. So for somebody like myself, I'm coming from Hawaii, and the water in Hawaii is super warm. So the water temperature out here in Salvador is almost exactly the same as it is in Hawaii. But if you go to Rio, the water is like super cold. Don't get me wrong, cold water can be refreshing, especially when it's on like a hot day. Like Rio, the temperatures when I was out there was like, I want to say it was like 90, 93 degrees, you know what I mean? On the low end, it was like 85 degrees. But out here in Salvador, it's kind of more, I wouldn't say it's mild, it's still hot. It's more so like Hawaii. The highs is like around 86, 87 degrees. And this is summertime, so you know what I mean? So year round, I think the temperature is a little bit more similar here opposed to like Rio, where I think it gets a little colder during the wintertime. So that's one aspect, the beaches. But I would kind of qualify the beaches and the nature in the same category. And for me, the nature aspect, I would have to give that to Rio. So like Rio has just a way more aesthetic beach. Like there's all these mountains and these islands out, in the backdrops. And then on the sunset, you got like, what's the name? Vidigal, the area. You see that in the background. So it's like super dope sunsets in Rio. They got super dope sunsets here too in Salvador. But I think like if you were to go like somewhere real close to Rio de Janeiro or in Rio de Janeiro, I know they have like a couple of state parks, national parks that you guys can go to if you guys visit. So I would say like that's one thing that Rio has over Salvador as well, like in terms of just the nature aspect. So let's get into the next topic, and let's go to cost of living. So as far as the cost of living, I would say that the majority of things that you can do out here in Salvador is a little bit cheaper. Like when it comes down to food, when it comes down to just buying things on the beach like coconuts, coconut water, agua de coco. So you can buy like all these things on the beach. When it comes down to like buying drinks, alcoholic beverages, stuff like that, or just food in general, going out to the grocery store, I would say it's a little bit cheaper here. Not too much cheaper, but it's definitely a little bit cheaper in Salvador. As far as like transportation, Rio's got Salvador beat. Like they don't really even have a train station out here, if I'm not mistaken. And they might have a train station, I just haven't found it. I've been here for a couple weeks. I haven't seen any train stops, and I've been staying in one of the most populated areas and like one of the most touristic areas. So I don't think the public transportation here is maybe as good as Rio. Out here I've taken the bus a few times, which is not bad. The bus is actually a cool little option. But having a train, you know what I mean, that's running on a certain schedule, that's something for me personally that I think is super important, and it's something that kind of makes the quality of living a little bit better. So I give that edge to Rio. Now, another thing that I would give edge to Rio is the fact that Rio has way better quality Airbnbs. Like the Airbnb situation here in Salvador is kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say it's abysmal, but like there just isn't nowhere near as many options. And I'll show you guys a video of the spot that I was staying in Rio. Don't get me wrong, it was a little bit out of the way. And then I'll show you guys a video of the spot that I'm staying here now in Salvador. And you can see it's just night and day. The amenities that I had in the spot in Rio, it was just super plush, nice balcony, washing machine, full kitchen, computer desk where I can kind of do all my work and set up shop, can stay focused. But here it's just the bare bones. It's really not anything special in particular. It's just literally you barely can even cook in the kitchen that I have here. So the kitchen isn't very good. Like there's no washer, dryer. It's just not really much. And then on top of that, like this Airbnb in particular, I'm not gonna necessarily stereotype all the Airbnbs out here, but this Airbnb in particular is just like busted. It's broke down. Like the sink just broke today. You know what I mean? The Wi-Fi is terrible. You know what I mean? So it's like I can't even really get work done. So if you're somebody who kind of is an entrepreneur, or you have an online business, or you work remote, then this isn't necessarily, it might not be the spot for you. And then as far as like the energy in this city, it's like a Hawaii. You know what I mean? I look at Salvador as almost like a black version of Hawaii. Like everything's super laid back, people move slow, which is great, you know what I mean, for like low stress environment. And it's great in terms of just like, you know what I mean, if you want to go someplace and chill and kind of take it easy. But if you're somebody who kind of feeds off the energy of a city and you kind of want to be kind of in that hustle and bustle environment, it might not necessarily be the spot for you. So let's move on to the next category, and I would say food might be the next category. To be honest, like Rio de Janeiro, like out of almost all the cities I've been to in the world, I would probably say Rio might have the worst food that I've ever been to. Like it's just, there's really not many good restaurants. Like all of the restaurants are like, at least the ones I went to, are super basic. I didn't go out to any restaurants where I was like, damn, this shit is hella good. You know what I mean? Like all the restaurants I went to is basic. Like even the more expensive ones is basic. Like the steakhouses, basic. Like everything you get there is gonna be basic. It's just like rice, beans, meat, you know what I mean? Maybe a little bit of vegetables if you're lucky. You know what I mean? So as far as the food situation, it's not really anything special out in Rio. I wouldn't necessarily say Salvador has the best food that I've ever tasted in my life, but at the same time, it's like I've had some restaurants out here where I felt like, okay, that was different, that was new, that was like pretty tasty, you know what I mean? Like Salvador has some decent food. So, if you want to go out, try some different restaurants, like they got some like African dishes out here. Like you can see we on the coast, so it's like they got a lot of seafood out here. They love shrimp out here if you're into that. But if you want that type of food, like you want to try something a little bit different, maybe some different flavors, maybe some spicier food, like Salvador has that. So I would say Salvador is definitely winning in the food department. The only thing I would say that Rio does a little bit better than Salvador is like, I like how in Rio, like almost every corner, every other corner, they have these spots that are like suco spots, which is juice spots. And you can get like fresh squeezed juice. You can get acai bowls. You can get little pastries and stuff over there. So I really enjoyed those when I was out in Rio, and I think they have more of that in Rio. And honestly, I think the acai bowls is a little bit better in Rio as well. So I'll probably give that to Rio as well. And honestly, when it comes down to grocery shopping too, I would say they have way better quality fruit in Rio. I've only been here for 2 weeks, and I only was in Rio for a month. But the grocery stores that I was going to in Rio, like the mangoes was on point, watermelons was on point, you know, the passion fruit was on point. Everything that I was getting in Rio was just good. Like I think I didn't have any fruit that wasn't good. It was like all sweet, all ripe, you know what I mean? Like it's on point. And they had a lot of vegetable options in the stores in Rio. And like in the stores here, they don't necessarily have as many vegetable options, and the fruit just isn't really as good. Like the mangoes are stringy out here. Like the watermelon, I didn't try any yet, but it just doesn't look as good. So I would definitely say that, you know, the fruit options and just going shopping in general out in Rio is maybe a little bit better. But going out to eat here in Salvador is a little bit better. All right, so another aspect of, you know, living is gonna be nightlife. And that's not necessarily something that I partake in too much, but I would say that the nightlife in Rio is definitely gonna win. Like, it just makes more sense. It's a bigger city. You know, the city's got more energy. You know, it's a tourist spot, so, you know, they just have parties, clubs, bars popping off every single night in Rio. Now here it's a little bit quieter, and it's a little bit more like neighborhoody. Like, I've noticed from being in this Baja area, like I just see a lot of the same people. Like I could just be walking around there in a day and be like, oh, I saw that person yesterday. Oh yeah, I saw that person yesterday. You know what I mean? Like you see a lot of the same people walking around. So I think that's like, it's more of like a local type spot. But at the same time, for somebody like myself, I actually prefer this type of nightlife more so than I prefer like the Rio. Like if you go out at night here, you see a lot of people just sitting outside of bars and restaurants, and everybody's just socializing, chopping it up. Everybody likes to drink these big beers out of these small little glasses, and you know, everybody's just kicking it, chilling. It's more laid back and more low key. Like I'm 36 years old. I'm not really a big club person, and I'm not a club person, and I'm not really a big bar person either. So that type of scene really isn't for me. But if that's for you, then you definitely would like to go to Rio more than you like to be here. But, and also just Rio has more events, so you just got to think about it like that. It's just like if you're in the United States, someplace like Los Angeles and New York City is going to have way more going on than a place like, I don't know, Fort Lauderdale, or a place like San Diego. You know what I mean? Like, it's just demographics and, you know, international cities, bigger populations, you know, more well known, so it's going to be more things going on in those cities. All right, so the next topic I'm going to speak on is going to be the women. So, you know, a lot of fellas, they like to travel and they like to meet women. That's a part of the culture. My view on like experiencing the culture is like, you experience the food, you experience the people, you know what I mean? You experience the everyday life, you experience the nature. And if you're a single man, you're going to want to experience the women as well. So just paying attention and just peeping the type of women that I see in both cities, I would say that Salvador has more attractive women. And I probably would say it's not even really relatively close. Like Salvador has just, you know, the women here just look better. And on top of that, I just would say that, like, I think Salvador has a little bit more of a fitness culture. So if you're somebody who's more into like women who are like taking care of themselves, being active, those type of things, maybe eating healthier, like Salvador just has that. It's more of like a Hawaii type vibes. Like Hawaii is another place like that. It's like you go to Hawaii and then you go to other places in the United States, you're just like, man, people here take care of themselves way more. Like everybody's in shape, or at least that's what you hear people say when they go to Hawaii. And I would say the same thing for Salvador. So for me, I think the women here are a little bit better looking. Actually, I'd probably say the women are a lot better looking than in Rio, but not saying that you can't find beautiful women in Rio as well. So you know. And also, that's just my perspective. You got different strokes for different folks. Some people will probably say, oh no, the women in Rio look way better than the women in Salvador. As a matter of fact, I was talking to some dudes in Rio about going to Salvador, and they're like, oh yeah, I don't really like the women up there too much. I prefer the women in Florianopolis or whatever. But those were white dudes who I was talking to when I was there. And like, Salvador is more demographically like black than a place like Rio, and definitely a place like Florianopolis. Like, Florianopolis is like white Brazil, and Salvador de Bahia is black Brazil. Like, everybody here is either black or they look mixed, or, you know, you see a lot of people, like, I would probably say the majority of the people you see here are like my skin color, maybe a little bit lighter or darker, you know what I mean? Like, you see a lot of people who just look more ethnic, you know what I mean? Even like the women here might be like more Latina looking. Another thing I want to talk about in the city is like the culture. And as far as the culture goes, like, it's just way more culture here. You can just tell just by walking around this city, there's just way more history. There's just way more interesting architecture. You know, everywhere you go, there's some type of historical thing. Like, if you go down to like the more central area out here, you know, all the architecture is like super Portuguese, but it's like super European in look. But then when you're in Central, like, there's super African vibes. Like, you hear the African drums being played. People are dancing like African type dances. It's just way more like black culture here. So it's a little bit more like on that type of culture. And even people who aren't black that I know who are from Brazil, they're like, oh, the culture is way doper in Salvador. So if you really want to experience some culture, you should definitely go to Salvador de Bahia. So the culture is definitely dope. And then another cool thing is, like, when you're out here, it's almost like you can be in like 2 or 3 different cities. Like, I feel like you can be on the beach and you feel like super beach vibes, and you're, you know, chilling, relaxing on a beach. But then if you want to go to like Central or these other little areas, you can go to like this one little area, I forget, I think it's like San Antonio or something. It's like super hipster, you know what I mean? And it's right next to like Central as well. So you got all different types of little restaurants, little quirky little spots. And then if you go into Central, you know, like I said, you got like the super Portuguese architecture with a lot of the African feel. Like, they got African clubs that are like, you know, like I think it's like African clubs, because, like, I mean, if you look at the culture, it looks like they playing the drums, African music, different things like that, different types of African cuisines. You know, this is probably, I would probably say Salvador de Bahia might be the closest thing that you can do to get to Africa, like the closest you can get to African culture outside of Africa. And I've heard that from plenty of other people. Another thing is they're big on like capoeira here. So if you guys don't know what capoeira is, like, back when they had slavery in Brazil, it was like a martial art. But the way that they disguised that they were working on a martial art was they transformed this martial art into a dance. So it's kind of like a cross between a martial art and a dance. And my plan when I got out here was actually to find like a capoeira studio to go kind of work out and train at. But luckily, I just been working on my calisthenics out here, and I actually bumped into this cat I met out here, and dude knows how to do capoeira. So he's been kind of like teaching me, showing me the basic moves and stuff like that. So I've actually gotten to have a little bit of a capoeira experience out here without having to necessarily go to a school and like technically learn it there. But that's pretty much it for this video. I just wanted to share with you guys my experience so far in Salvador de Bahia. I think it's a super dope city. I'm kind of conflicted into thinking whether this is like a vacation spot for me, or if this is like a spot where I could really post up, because I love the city. It's beautiful. Like, you know, the vibes is cool here. The people are super friendly. They're more friendly than Rio. But as far as like a place to post up at, I don't know if I've really been that productive here. I don't think it's as convenient as a city like Sao Paulo or Rio. So, you know, when I think about big cities, I think about convenience. I think about energy. But when I think about places like Salvador, maybe I think about healthier. I think about, you know what I mean, more relaxed, less stress. But one other thing that's kind of big for me, to be completely honest, that's really kind of making me think that I might not want to post up here as long as I did like in Rio or maybe in another area, is the fact that they don't have anywhere near as many calisthenics parks. So the calisthenics situation here is not very good. I'm not gonna say, actually, no, the calisthenics situation here is cool. They have calisthenics parks, but for me, where I'm staying at, I have to walk like 15, 20 minutes just to get to a calisthenics park. Either I walk 15, 20 minutes towards the mall, a little bit past the mall, or I gotta walk like 20 minutes uphill. So for me, it just makes it a little bit less convenient to get my workouts in. So, and when I was in Rio, there's literally calisthenics parks every couple blocks. So it's like you really can't walk anywhere without seeing some pull-up bars, dip bars. You can just get it in wherever. So that's a big thing for me, and you guys see the name of my channel is Growth Through Calisthenics. So for me, calisthenics is like a huge part of my lifestyle. So for me, I really kind of feel like I need to either be staying right by one of these calisthenics parks, or I just need to be in a city that just has more calisthenics options. But anyways, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video now. I've been ranting, going on and on about these two cities. I'm probably gonna end up going to Sao Paulo and Rio again, and I actually might come back here as well. So we'll see. My itinerary is kind of like, you know what I mean? I'm kind of going whichever way the wind kind of blows. It's a cryptocurrency conference in Rio De Janeiro next week, so I'm definitely going to go, or in a couple weeks, so I'm definitely going to go to that. But other than that, I really don't have any like concrete plans. But anyways, guys, if you guys are interested in a free consultation, fitness related, travel related, whatever you guys are interested in, holler at me, hit my website up. That's Travelsthenix.com. Book a free consultation with me today. We can map out a blueprint for you to become the best version of yourself, you know, physically through calisthenics. Maybe you want to get your travel game up, or maybe you want to get your mentality right. But I hope everybody's having a great day out there. I'll holler at you guys later. Peace.